Lead us out.
Thank you. Yes. So last week, let me just update that. Last week, we released Synapse 192.3 in response to the critical vulnerability in LibWebP that we all know and love now. Server administrators, please upgrade to that as soon as possible. Last week, we also released the RC of 193. And highlights of that include the automatic purging of forgotten rooms, which I personally very much am looking forward to for my personal home server. We also added support for MSC 4040, so we will look for the correct and updated SRV service name since we now have matrix-fed registered with the IANA. We've also added support, improved support, I should say, for presence with multiple devices and some performance improvements around server key and device fetching. Upcoming this week, we will be releasing Synapse version 1.93. And that is everything for us. So, please watch this space.
Very good. Thank you. Who's speaking to account portability / Dendrite?
Hello. So last week, we've been working on a crypto ID proposal. So this is the next stage up from pseudo IDs and as a prerequisite for account portability. Overall, it's looking to be kind of similar to MSC 4046, which I've linked in. We did some sliding sync maintenance work for the Element X Ignition release. And we've started work on implementing RIM version 11 in Dendrite. And this week, we're doing some end-to-end testing for Element X and sliding sync and matrix authentication service and all these good things. Working on an initial API for cryptographic identities in Dendrite, obviously, and continuing work on implementing RIM version 11 in Dendrite.
Very cool. Thank you. I was going to ask a question. I'm not. I'll do it later. All right. Spec.
Hello. Most of the Spec core team's time is taken up by DMA, really. And at least on the overview of MSCs, we did have one that popped out of the fold, static room directory, if you want to take a look at that one. Otherwise, we continue to get really good matrix spec PRs from Kevin. I've put a link to it there. Most notably, we recently changed to upgrade to OpenAPI version 3. We also dropped the word Swagger from our repo because that was really only technically correct for V2 and other older versions. So it's great to see that massive amount of work happen coming from the community. That will all be available in the next release of Matrix 1.9. which is coming in November. So if you build on top of our OpenAPI schema at all, expect it to get a lot more powerful in the next few weeks and months.
All right, thank you. So VoIP plan, we've got a talk.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
That's the first question what folks ask, right? Yes, we had this very nice Matrix summit, a community summit in Berlin last weekend. And Timo really gave a very nice talk, basically about a lot of lessons learned and the evolution from mCall events to mCall member events for the sake of managing Matrix RTC sessions. I really can recommend listening to it, and it's an in-depth talk. So that was, very nice. And we also had some intense and long discussions afterwards. Yes, that was really cool. By the way, the whole Matrix summit was a very nice thing. On the other news, last week was a lot of Element Call releases. So basically, we had this very big bang release, version 0.5, where we basically shipped the Matrix RTC session signaling concept, which was part of Timo's talk. And then throughout the last 2 days of the week, we shipped some bug fix releases such that we now have hopefully a very decent and smooth Element Call experience. And since we had really a very big change in the semantics of the underlying control, we monitor the space and if needed, we will provide further bug fixes. Now, after the big release, basically we're catching up with also some tech debt from last week, and we continue with the work on end-to-end encryption for embedded mode. Stay tuned.
Yeah, very nice to be having a relatively large, but not as large as one earlier today. Big group of folks on an end-to-end encrypted call. Barely even notable. Just happens and works. So well done, everyone. All right, Johnny, Rich Text Editor, where are we at?
Hello. Last week we've mainly been working on supporting full screen mode for Element X, so allowing the editor to be embedded in complex layouts that need to be pre-measured and things like that. Although since we've released, we've seen a few bugs coming in, so I think we're going to switch back to just looking at stability and making sure that autocomplete and things like that work, emojis as well. So stay tuned for that.
All right, thank you. Who's speaking to web today? No one at all. All right, well, I can tell you they're working a lot around Snap notifications and trying to build out the test suite. And that's mainly what's on my radar for them. You can read the extra notes that some kind soul has left there for you. Let's move through into Android. Francois, where are we?
Yes. Hello. So last week we had the Element X initial release, so 0.2.1, with the latest, newest, faster startup, the element code integration, some new design updated, like icons, welcome pages, and the new bloom effect. And you can read the rest. Otherwise, we are still continue to work on rich text editor. Voice message are started, and otherwise we are still doing some general bug fixing and performance improvements.
Oh, very nice. And I mean, congratulations to both teams on the Ignition launch. Speaking of which, let's hear more about that from iOS.
Hello. I think the recurring theme now, like iOS update, is very similar to the Android one. We had the Ignition launch, which brings with us, we've got the RTE enabled by default. We support Element Call link opening. We've got a little indicator on messages that are coming from threads now shown. Notifications, we've tidied them up a little bit. So HTML and Markdown get passed and then cleaned out. So it's just plain text. And we're now removing reply quotes as well, which is really nice. We tidied up some of the send animation, so it looks a little bit nicer. And again, we're using more icons from Compound, which on our side, I don't think it made it into Ignition, but it's there for the launch video build. And yeah, loads and loads of bug fixes. I think possibly more exciting news than that, though, last week was that Maro added support for snapshot tests for all of our SwiftUI previews, which bumped our coverage test up by 12% from a single PR and just covers a lot more stuff, which is really great. And we've added that to Compound as well. So we've got tests on that side too. And yeah, this week, voice message support is in progress and work on mentions has been resumed as well. So carrying on with that.
Very nice. One thing I didn't quite get on the snapshot tests, in terms of coverage, you're counting that as sort of overall unit test coverage. Is that right? Or do you consider them to be kind of separate entities?
So I think that's 12% over all of our tests. So that's including unit tests, integration tests, and UI tests.
Right. Okay, got it. Brilliant.
Can I just check on iOS releases? I know one of the things which is messing up embedded VoIP is the iOS app enthusiastically causing Element Call to say, hey, do you want to open the call in the app when you're already in the app? For nasty things like that, are we going to do point releases, please? This question probably more to Manu than anyone.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that on my side. I don't know what the cause is on that.
I think we said we will not do fancy things with a widget kind of feature. Basically, here that will need the web view to talk to its host.
Well, hang on a sec. I think the bug here has been fixed this afternoon by Stefan about 5 hours ago.
Okay, so if it has been fixed, yeah, there is a regular release that will happen tomorrow.
Oh, okay, perfect, brilliant. If it had been a 2-week wait, though, I think that would have been a shame because it unfairly makes Element Call look crap. But if they're releasing anyway tomorrow, then hurrah.
Yeah, and sorry, I don't know the details, but yeah, there will be another release tomorrow.
Cool.
All right, Kat in QA.
Hi. So this week we had a big jump in code coverage. iOS went up by 12%. Well done, iOS team. Also, we've been doing a lot of testing on Element X. Last week we were looking at threads location sharing settings. This week we've got a lot more exciting work coming up, including rich text editor and device manager. We're also continuing work on traffic light. We're working on improving local testing and how we display the results once the tests have run. And we've got more of that coming up this week.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with the traffic light sort of quality of life stuff, just to make it a bit easier for everyone else to dive in.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, what's going on in Rust?
Hello. Yeah, a bunch of stuff was happening, mainly for the releases for the Element X apps, and we had some bug fixes. We had some smaller feature requests. For example, we had some bug fix for users wouldn't receive the initial room key for the first message, only for the second message. We have a new high-level reply API. So replying doesn't make a request to fetch the event. Instead, we use the event from storage. And yeah, Quadus support is landing. Initial PRs are in review. And coming up this week, from my side, the backup API will receive a public API that you can then hopefully restore your messages. Not really final design, and the signed backup MSC needs some more work, but hopefully something that will start happening soon.
That's exciting. When do you think app developers can start playing with that API?
Yeah, the plan is to get something they can start playing with by the end of the week, so end of month. That was the target, and I hopefully I can make this.
Very good, very good. Good luck, everyone.
Yeah, after that, there will be some product and design discussion how to make the crypto setup much more easy for users in Element X.
Yeah, very good. All right, the cupboard's looking a bit bare. Well, we'll skip over hydrogen, but for encryption, anybody want to speak to it?
I was hoping Valère was going to be here, but I guess he's not. So I can try and stand in, and all I can say is we are putting the final finishing touches to the things we need to do for Element Web R before we can enable it on develop.element.io, hoping to really get that done this week. Meanwhile, Hubert has been looking hard at next generation key backup protocol, and starting to implement that, I believe. That's all I know.
Cool. Thanks, Rich. Good luck with Element Web R.
Thank you.
Bridges. Andrew, you have the floor.
Hello, hello. Yeah, the biggest news from last week is that Hookshot is being updated to handle a security issue with a deprecated JS sandbox that it used for executing custom hooks to be called when you had a webhook come in. So we have a thing where you can make your own custom webhooks to make Hookshot print whatever you want whenever a webhook gets received. but the library we used for that was recently discontinued. So we've been migrating that to a supported library, and that just got merged maybe 10 minutes ago. So this week we'll be cutting a release with that included, along with the other goodies that have been in Hookshot over the past few weeks. And that's, other than that, business as usual.
Cool, thank you. Quentin, tell me all about authentication. I appreciate all the visual cues here as well.
Yeah. So one thing that happened last week is Tib published a blog post about OIDC on matrix.org. So if you're all confused about what we're doing, I think it's a pretty good summary of what we're doing actually. And at the same time, this week, Matthew gave his talk about the Matrix State of the Union. And in my completely unbiased opinion, the best part was when it talked for 5 minutes about OIDC. So I encourage you to also look at that. Apart from that, two things happening in mass. First of all, we're not now properly tracking session activity, so we know when a session was last active, and we're also recording IP addresses of those sessions, so you can properly figure out if your session is being used from an unusual place. And also, we finally have a proper unified list of compatibility sessions and OIDC sessions. So before, depending on whether you were logged in the legacy client or using the compatibility legacy authentication or an OIDC authentication, your session would end up in a separate list. Now it's a nice unified list that you can see in the screenshots here. I also started looking at doing some internationalization and localization in the auth service on the backend part, and also started finally looking at testing the authentication service and Synapse, the whole stack with Complement. And those are two things I will be continuing to do this week.
Cool. Is it working end to end with Complement, or are you in the process of getting it there?
I'm in the process of getting it there, of like setting up the Docker image and also adapting all the codes that Complement is doing to log in to adapt them to a more OIDC native way.
Very cool.
When can we get migration for existing home servers? Because this is the thing that every other person is asking me in Berlin and beyond.
That's a very good question. We don't intend to work on it right now because we want to make the whole thing more stable before people start migrating. And this is why we're looking at end-to-end testing like that. The tool is already somewhat available in APR, the tool we use to migrate the element.io home server. But I can't. Maybe no, Hue is not in this code, so I can't really give a timeline, but I guess soon-ish.
All right. Tib, not much going on in the community last week, right?
Do I sound like a robot, or can you hear me correctly?
You sound fine.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, no biggie last week, just the Matrix 2.0 introduction blog post with the 4 massive pillars of what is going to be the future of Matrix. And one of those pillars is OIDC, which we already support, but not exactly, well, not like that. So it's a bit confusing. So we wrote a blog post with Quentin and Hugh, and we published it right before the Matrix 2.0 blog post. So you might not have seen it. But it's there. Other than that, there was the Community Summit, which was a massive, massive success. A lot of people are super happy about the summit, sorry. So kudos to Jan, Christian, Seabase, and the broader Matrix community for making it happen. I heard that the team that was on everything streaming is going to do the post-production work so we can upload the talk on the YouTube channel. So this is going to happen as soon as we have the talks. What else? What else? Coming up this week, we're going to do some fundraising work for everything trust and safety. I'd like to soft launch the Matrix server list at last to finally get some instance owners to opt in. And Quentin, I'm not sure if it makes sense. Should I make a Matrix authentication service tutorial? And should I make it with Keycloak, or can I use any IDP? You're muted.
Oh, I thought I clicked on that button. Maybe not right now. We still have some parts in the documentation to fill up for upstream. Well, for actually, maybe you can help me fill that documentation up, actually. So, yeah, sure. We should get in touch.
All right. Works for me. And that's it for advocacy.
All right. Josh, you've got the floor.
Hello. Good local time, folks. Never a dull moment. Never a dull moment. So last week, was soliciting ideas and input for the next iteration of this here thing we call the Matrix Sync. Yes, we are going to revise it to make it a better use of everybody's time, but I want to make sure that we're being thoughtful about that process, so more on that soon. Getting up to speed on compliance and policy. So I'd been working on getting up to speed on trust and safety, pop up a level to the compliance and policy side of things. Much gratitude to Jim and Denise and Travis and Shay and everybody in that corner of the world. There's a lot going on there. One of the things that was more exciting about last week, on top of the already very exciting 2.0 announcements and Matrix Community Summit, is that Tib and I spent some time getting the foundation to really be plugged in with the rest of the community of open source foundations. So we're plugged into a couple mailing lists. There's a regular call with other people who lead foundations that I'm joining. And we fired off an application to join as an affiliate member of the Open Source Initiative, which is a step toward, banding together with other organizations to advocate for open source. I was not driving the press and communications activity, but I was a part of it all last week, so that was a non-trivial amount of time. And was glad to spend some time last week catching up on membership inquiries and receivables, which I'm very pleased with the amount of revenue that is due to the foundation at this moment. This week is planning for Matrix Sync. Tons of administrative joy, from insurance to tax consultation to contracts and billing. Building out an elections program plan, so that's actually pretty exciting. And then inching forward on the Libra chat situation. Looking forward to having more to share on that, but not a lot to say at the moment. And thank you, Matthew. Yes, also starting this week by dealing with the Graphene OS situation. Part of this here role that I'm in is definitely leaving Slack to be responsive to whatever the fire of the day or the week is, which will be a regular occurrence, no doubt. Any questions? Grant.
All right, folks. Well, I think that's all. Looking forward to future iterations of how we best use this time. So looking forward to that. See you all.
Have a great evening.